If you see yourself in Paraguay 5 years from now, what do you think your life would look like?
Well, 5 years from now, I'm like just short of retired, but let's assume I'm retired or like that, and I have the financial part figured out. I would certainly like to set up a home base in Paraguay or near an airport, like I said, Asuncion, where I would live like part time back and forth. Where it's like, hey, I'm sure like a lot of people do that for retirement purposes. You can't quite just, you have your home, your family. Like my family's not coming over here with me. I don't have a wife or children in that sense, and then family members and friends are probably all still over there. They have their obligations. Doesn't mean you can't make new friends and potentially even a family here. You never know, right? But yeah, I would certainly see it here. I'm a huge fan of motorcycles. And I think I was just telling Gerald, I was like, hey, look, it's like about the whole used car versus new car. He's like, definitely get a new car. Don't get a used one here. That was his advice. Totally see it. Agree with it from what I've seen. Nothing wrong with cars per se, but it's different countries, different. I think people look at cars differently. But I do like the motorcycles. I do feel they're smaller here. I would be like, yeah, I would totally get a nice little small home or a decent home or a good condo. Like the Airbnb has been saying, I've been impressed every time where it's been very affordable and very good and clean and well kept, and everyone's friendly for the guy downstairs. And if you just have overhead parking or rather the covered parking, that'd be great for the motorcycle. And it's like the day it rains or the day, I don't know, I don't want to carry anything or a grocery. It's totally practical to get an Uber and Bolt and just go from point A to B, and it's not like crazy at all. The price is in the local currency of what I need, but I know when I convert it, it's better, cheaper, and safer than even driving. Because that's the other thing too, to be honest. My car is automatic. I think most Americans have automatic cars. There's an option for manual. Here, everything is pretty much manual. It's not a bad thing. Motorcycles are manual, and I can operate stick. That being said, operating a manual vehicle in traffic here, from what I've seen driving, I feel better, safer operating a motorcycle that I'm very good at versus a manual car that's bigger in between the traffic. And the roads, the main roads are good. They're asphalt. The local roads are very nice and beautiful aesthetically in the sense of their cobblestone roads and brick, but they are not the best for like, you almost either need a dual sport motorcycle or you need a vehicle, and it's almost no point in having a truck or a car because you have to go slow on them. So if I'm gonna go slow, might as well get the off-road, but the dual sport where it's like you can use it for off-road motorcycle or you can use it for a street. That's the way I've been looking at it as a problem as an engineer. It's like, hey, roads are not consistent. Motorcycle most experienced with that more than manual car transmission cars. That's how I would get a little house or condo, have a motorcycle, and then Uber everywhere else you need to go and be as close to centrally located, but not too much to where it's an issue where it's like, hey, there's too many people here, and near food. Always near the food, and the lomitas and the carne is all so good. And yeah, just right there to anywhere I need to go.
Like you mentioned Uber or, getting a service like that. Sometimes it's cheaper and less time consuming than actually driving here.
Safer.
Especially because of
I'm
parking.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but parking it's sometimes like a pretty big problem here, especially like in this corporate areas, because there's so many cars, like so many people driving, and there's not many spaces to park. So sometimes you lose more time actually trying to look for a parking space rather than getting to the destiny.
Yeah, I will say something on that, and obviously I am biased because I come from the New Jersey, New York area, so parking is a ridiculous issue there, and I feel this speaks to the Paraguayans being humble and good in the sense of you guys actually follow rules. I'm not saying I do it all the time or do it at all. Keep the liability off, but for example, like I have a truck in New York City. There is no parking. I have seen and done a lot of things for construction in certain projects where you just park on the sidewalk, and what are you going to do about it? I don't see that here, which is good for you guys because you actually care and respect that part of it. Or other places I've been where it's like motorcycles will park on the street, like that's a lot, or cars will park on the street, like on the sidewalk. Like they'll just say, screw it, because I'm not walking that far. So I don't know if that's a me thing, American thing, or a construction worker thing where we just park the trucks wherever we need to unload. And then sometimes it stays there longer than it should, probably, to be fair. But I feel, at least coming from there, so same thing with the cold weather. It's like, you're like, oh my God, it's cold. People are wearing coats here. Like 25, 30, to me, it's like, I don't even think this is an issue. But I do see absolutely where the parking can be a little bit tight. Again, where we're at right now, there's like 2-3 malls, and it's like the center of like it's a commercial center. Yeah, I can see where some people do that. But even then, like the Uber, it's like if you put it in US dollars, I think it's been like plus or minus $5 to $10. And that's like, and I've seen some even cheaper in the sense of that. I don't want to say cheap. It's just the way the currency works. It just translates, and it's more not even because of that. It's more I've been in a couple of car accidents and motorcycle accidents and a whole bunch of other things. I've been put back together a few times, and so me driving a manual car in like a very bumpy road, I don't want to hurt myself or someone else. I'd rather just, hey, motorcycle, completely confident with that. I'm used to that. But the manual car and then trying not to hit someone or something, I'd rather gladly pay a few dollars to safely get somewhere with someone that is local and knows the streets. And eventually I'll probably drive, but I see myself getting a motorcycle first here.
Yeah, I mean, something that you have to consider though could be the climate. You know, it's really hot here. So if that's not a problem with the motorcycle, like for you, that's okay. But then again, you have Uber, so it's easy to, you know, balance that. Whenever you need to use Uber, you can use Uber, and then you use the motorcycle or your car, whatever you get, you know. So it's pretty easy to move around in the end.
Yeah, no, certainly exactly that. Exactly the consideration for it. It's hopefully it's not too hot. I know it gets hot. I was here when it got
It
got pretty humid, and I will say this. Let's see how it goes in 5 years from now. Like you were saying, like who knows where it is? Where it's like, hey, I have ridden my motorcycle in the desert, and it's been very hard. It's very hot, and you sweat a lot, but you're okay because you're moving really fast. I will say that is probably a challenge here because it's not a highway, it's a city.
Yeah, no, you're not moving fast here.
80, 90 miles an hour to just stay cool. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But if, you know, maybe it'll change my opinion in 5 years from now where it's like, I do a few weeks on the motorcycle in the summer, and it's like, nah.
It's not for me.
Buy me your car. Let's go. Or I'll just be like, hey, Uber everywhere. We'll see. I'm curious to see how it pans out.
So now that you've gone through the whole process of getting a residency, are there any mistakes that you would recommend people avoiding, or what's your suggestion whenever going through this process, if there's anything?
Okay. So I'll say how I did it. I don't know if it worked for me. I don't know if it's right. There's a lot of documents, specifically on the American side, the FBI background check. They're not hard things to get. You pay. There's a bunch of, you Google, you get a bunch of different ad services. I just, I forgot which embassy I went to. There was some countries where I say it wasn't Paraguay. It was one that was nearby. And I was like, how did I do this? And they were like, call this number, get that. And then I ordered it and I got it in the mail. And it was cheaper and it was didn't take long at all. I think it was barely a week, like to 10 days. And I got it in the mail and in a hard big envelope. That was one. Instead of using, I'm not saying don't use third-party services, but I feel like there is a significant upcharge for the same thing, especially if you're not in a rush. I don't think this should be done in a rush, so it should be in that spot. And then just even the traveling part, I'm a fan of, hey, Google flights, see what's the cheapest. That's when I'm going. That's when I'm taking off. I don't specifically need to go on there to be back on a Sunday. If the flight's cheaper on Tuesday, I'm going on Tuesday, and it's what it is, and then I'll go and that's the other thing. You need the business days here. And that was one thing that I looked at was like, I know when I first look at it, it's like, hey, treat it like a vacation. It's like, no, not really, because I need the Monday through Friday days here, working days, versus like, oh, holiday, don't do it around a holiday. I'm not going to say don't do it around a holiday on the US side. Just keep in mind, different countries, different holidays. Take advantage of that actually, because then you can, the tickets might be expensive or cheaper depending on when and where you're going. I'm sure the airlines have a whole algorithm figured out 10 ways to Sunday, but it would be like a way to get an extra few days off on the work side. That would, like, if that Monday's off over home, but it's still a work day here, that's a free day off. That's certainly a good tactic for it. And then back to the documentation part, I did my own apostle. So it goes by the state, like wherever, if you were born, I was born in New Jersey, so the capital I had to go to was Trenton. And my birth certificate to get translated and apostled, or rather apostled first, because I believe Jesse did the translation officially. And I went down to Trenton with my original birth certificate. I gave it to them, and they said, go have lunch, come back. They brought it stapled. And then downstairs there was an office where a lawyer stamped it again. But essentially they did it all right there, and it was like $60 or $70. It was cheap enough. Same day, but you have to take the time out to go there that day. Versus if you do it online, they're like, hey, mail us the original, and then we'll get it done depending on. And of course, I'm sure they have someone in every state. But yeah, it was essentially I did the birth certificate apostle myself. If you're living in the same state that you were born in, highly recommend just take the day trip, go to the capital of that state and say, hey, I want this apostle, take the lunch, and by the end of the afternoon, it was not an issue. So you saved potentially a few $100 there, because that's where the prices were going for like $200 to $400 for like quote unquote 48-hour service. versus you could just go take a day trip down if you can, because obviously that's also that. Another quote unquote mistake would be, I'm not gonna say you don't need cash here. You do need cash here. I felt cash is pretty good. It's not easy to get guarani over where I'm at. It's not a common currency. I figured euros, yen, and stuff like that. Sure, I did. I come with American cash because the Maxi Cambio, that's the name of the store. In other places, you can trade cash for cash, and that works. It does not always work with your ATM debit card. It worked for me. I have USA, all that stuff, but it is not this. It's better to come cash for cash and then try to figure out your debit card situation, because in the airport, I will say there was an ATM that did US dollars and guarani before immigration, not after immigration. So it's fine, fair enough. Get a card that doesn't charge a foreign transaction fee or whatever, and you're good. But that would be everyone's pretty good with tap to pay, which is pretty good to see. Everyone had tap to pay or card. Even the guy on the street selling little lomitos and then hot dogs or whatever on the corner, they have the devices. It'll be Bluetooth. You tap your card and you're good to go, or your phone. So don't think you can't use it. Don't think just because some roads might be like antique roads that are really nice, but that all of a sudden there's no tap. Everyone has tap to pay. However, the cash, I don't want to say cash is fully king, but it is definitely worth having for the small trinkets and purchases. Like the tereré guy, he's cash. Like if there's a guy in the park that sells you the tereré, the yellow mate, the drink, he's cash only. And then a few other little things are like that. But I think that's about the main things. It's if you're coming from the north, it's not cold. It's not cold at all. You don't really need a jacket. And I think I have yet to buy a jacket here. But if it ever got so cold, supposedly, I would then maybe just buy a jacket. But save yourself the space on the luggage for sure.
Yeah, even when it's winter, it's not that cold.
Yeah, it's like you're not dying. If you're local here, yes, of course. I don't judge.
Locals, we get really cold here because we're not used to it.
No, yeah, if you're in Canada, you're in shorts over here. It's there, literally, we know.
Would you say that getting the second residency ahead of time, doing it with no rush and like at this point of your life rather than doing it later in life, do you think that's something that you would recommend, or what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I did it now versus later. Again, injury wheelchair made me contemplate life now versus later in a deeper sense. I want a lot of these residencies in any country, not just Paraguay, have a clock of time, and I wanted to start that clock sooner than later. I took advantage of Paraguay is good because you don't need even the VA letter to say you have retirement pension income, because you don't have to prove economic solvency. But a lot of places was like, you need to start the clock now. And even here, there is a clock of, hey, I have to do temporary, move to permanent. And in my case, I don't believe I'm eligible or able to get citizenship. I'm not interested in any other citizenship at this time. From my whole learning and research, the only real difference from permanent residency to citizenship is usually some kind of medical benefit, kind of, and the right to vote. I'm not a politician. I'm not about to pretend and vote in another country where so it's permanent residency gets me like 99%, like quite literally the same thing as if anyone else was here, except I don't vote in a foreign. I'm okay with that. I have no issue. Maybe in Canada, I think it's like you get more medical benefits because you're a citizen versus a resident there. But that's that country's rules. Here, it's like I don't need another citizenship. I have a U.S. passport. I do like the residency, and the Cedula lets me go around. Like that's the other benefit of the Cedula. To go enter, for example, Americans need a visa to enter Brazil. When I have the Cedula, I technically don't need it, and that should be it kind of bypasses a few things. And so that was out.
That's important that you
start that clock early. Yeah, start the clock early. So when I retire, I don't have to then apply. Then it's like, hey, I'm 35 now. In 2 years, it becomes permanent, and then I'm locked in. I'm good. That I know of, unless I do something ridiculous to jeopardize that, I should be fine. That's from my understanding. And
yeah, that's right. No, and besides with the Cedula, like you've mentioned, you can go around, South America. You can go to Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay with your Cedula, and you're just good to go. It's like you're one more of them. And that's really nice because we don't have a way out to the ocean. We don't have a beach or mountains or things like that.
Yeah, you are landlocked.
Yeah, but if you want to experience that while living here in Paraguay, you just go. You can even go with your car or your motorcycle. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy even to get that.
Yeah, that's something Gerald and me were kind of talking on. I was like, about the vehicles. He's like, so you can go to the Cataraca Iguazu, but you need to have the Mercosur insurance. So he's like, make sure you have that, which I'd imagine it wouldn't be crazy. I haven't looked up, but that's like good point. Yeah, that all lets me stay. And the other part was, who knows what the future holds? But if you have the Cedula, from what I'm understanding, is I can in theory work because I have the RUC number in any one of those Mercosur countries, at least temporarily until needing a work permit. But it's, like I said, being a permanent resident gets you 99% of the same rights as a citizen.
Yeah, that's right. They treat you just like a Paraguayan.
And it's significantly cheaper, and the time frame shorter. It's just the time frame is a lot for a lot of places.
So if you could go back 10 years in life and ask your younger self, what would you think he'd say about this decision you're making?
The younger me would be like, well, I guess you lived more longer than I have, so you got to know what's up. And I would certainly say that 10 years ago, the younger me would be like, didn't see that happening. But then I also never, anyone that knew me growing up would be like, never saw me joining the Army, let alone the Air Force later. You know, so it's like, who knows? I had long hair at some point, believe it or not. So you can imagine, they're like, yeah, this guy? Nah. But then life has a funny way of going. So I'm sure the 10-year-old me, the 10 years ago me would look at me now and be like, didn't see that coming at all. But you see more than I did. So, and again, a decade is a short time, but it's also a long time. A lot can happen in a year, let alone 10 times as much. But yeah, I would like to go back if I could change something. That wasn't quite the question. Tell the younger self, like, hey, start sooner and be careful about just certain things in life. You know, just be like, hey, consider this because, hey, one, like I said, injuries will do it. Be like, hey, take care of my health more and certainly prepare more for the future because it's quicker than you think. It's not right there. It's definitely further down the road. But if I could tell the 10 years ago me, there's definitely certain things that if I had just done a different choice, life would have been totally different. I'm sure everyone has that at some point. And I would have loved to have started a decade ago on the whole international part of it, where it's like, hey, and there was no, that time would have passed anyway. So certainly start things, don't leave things for tomorrow or later of retirement. Don't listen to people that say you got to do it in retirement. It's like, well, you could take it with a grain of salt and you could do it sooner.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. It's good.
And I hope you enjoy Paraguay.
Oh, that's the plan. I'm out. That works. But thank you for having me.
This is Nomad Elite. And if you want more information about getting your residency here in Paraguay, make sure to click the link below.